Vietnamese and Cantonese aren't exactly the two most different languages in the world. There are people who will say one sounds similar to the other, and the languages do border each other geographically. Of course, the languages are genetically unrelated. Vietnamese is an Austroasiatic language, and Cantonese is Sino-Tibetan. But the languages do have some shared traits, whether coincidentally or from close contact. And today, I shall assess the similarities and differences between Vietnamese and Cantonese. Some quick background first. Vietnamese is spoken in Vietnam, obviously, by the Vietnamese King people. There are quite a few differences between the northern, southern, and central dialects of Vietnamese, particularly with sounds and vocabulary, and we'll be taking those into account with the comparison. Cantonese, which is a part of the Yue group of Chinese varieties, is spoken primarily in the Guangdong province of China. The language is even referred to as Guangdonghua, literally Guangdong speech. Cantonese is also spoken in Macau and Hong Kong, which is the location of the headquarters of italki, the sponsor for today's video. italki is a wonderful language learning platform where you can sign up for lessons from a plethora of friendly certified native speakers. All lessons on italki can be customized to your current level of proficiency and can focus on the skills that you need to improve on. Having a speaking environment where you can talk one-on-one with a helpful native speaker is invaluable and really helps to speed up the process of learning a language. italki has more than 150 language options to choose from and take lessons in. Even I, as a language-obsessed lizard, haven't even heard of some of these, so finding a teacher for your target language shouldn't be a problem. italki has no annoying subscriptions. You just pay for each individual lesson, so you can sign up for just the right amount of lessons as you need. Lessons start from just $5, so it's cheap to hop into a lesson and determine if the teacher is right for you. I'm currently brushing up on my Vietnamese on italki, and I've had a great time learning there.
Okay, so if you, for example, you want to go to that restaurant and you want to reserve a table, how would you say?
That bàn.
Đặt bàn, exactly. Đặt bàn. Okay, good. Alright.
Click the link in the description to advance your language learning journey, and use my exclusive promo code LIZARD5 for a buy $10, get $5 for free discount for your first lesson. These discounts are available to the first 50 users to sign up using the code LIZARD5, link in the description. Now back to comparing Vietnamese and Cantonese, starting with their vocabulary. Vietnamese has been extensively influenced by the Chinese languages, mostly in the form of Middle Chinese, the ancestor of most Sinitic languages, including Cantonese. Most of these loans were brought in many centuries ago, so there's been pronunciation drift, both from the sound changes of Old Vietnamese to Middle Vietnamese and Modern Vietnamese, but also from Middle Chinese to Cantonese. Words of Chinese origin are also known as Sino-Vietnamese words, and they account for about 60% of the total vocabulary of Vietnamese. And although the percentage is lower in normal conversation, as the Sino-Vietnamese vocabulary is most frequent in formal, literary, and technical contexts, plenty of these words are still used in daily life alongside native Vietnamese words. Here are some examples of similar vocabulary between Vietnamese and Cantonese.
chuẩn bị,
準備
To prepare,
nhân dân,
人民
meaning people.
tẩy chay,
抵制
To boycott,
văn hóa,
文化
meaning culture.
phòng,
房
Room,
đẩy,
袋
meaning sack or bag. While as I mentioned earlier, Northern and Southern Vietnamese have differing vocabulary, this is mostly the case with native Vietnamese words, and Sino-Vietnamese words are usually the same across all dialects of the language. But as you can see, Vietnamese and Cantonese have wildly different pronunciations of cognate words, so let's talk about their sounds. For the most part, the two languages both have the same consonants allowed at the ends of syllables, those being p, t, k, m, n, ng. Vietnamese can be analyzed as having coda y and w as part of diphthongs, and most Cantonese diphthongs end in a similar e and u, except for o, which ends in u. Most languages that have the velar nasal ng only allow it at the ends of syllables, but in both Vietnamese and Cantonese, they can occur at the start of syllables too. This isn't common worldwide, but is especially prevalent in the languages of Southeast Asia. Comparing the vowels, both languages have a distinction between a long a sound and a type of shorter a, with Vietnamese going a step further, distinguishing between short and long Cantonese doesn't have a full-on schwa, but it does have which doesn't occur in Vietnamese. And the same can be said about U. Vietnamese instead has the vowel U unique to it. It also has distinctions between E with E and O with O, whereas in Cantonese, those are allophones of the same sound. Though in open syllables, E is contrasted with the diphthong A, as is O with O. This is comparable to Southern Vietnamese, where E and O are pronounced as diphthongs A and O in open syllables, though this comparison doesn't apply when the vowels are followed by codas. Vietnamese has the diphthongs ia, ua, and ia, none of which exist in Cantonese. In Cantonese, I becomes I and U becomes before velar codas ka and nga, which is similar to Vietnamese I becoming centralized before those sounds, and in all dialects, U shifts to U, and the finals are also realized as labial velar kpa and ngma. The consonants of the two languages are fairly similar, but with plenty of noticeable differences. For starters, Cantonese has all of its plosives and affricates come in aspirated and unaspirated pairs. Vietnamese has this with unaspirated ta and aspirated ta, and some dialects contrast ka with ka, but in most of them, the aspirated sound shifted to ha, the old aspirated pa changed to fa, and the unaspirated equivalents merged with the voiced implosive ba, which obviously doesn't exist in Cantonese. Both languages have the fricatives fa, sa, ha, a lateral la, and almost have the same nasals, but Vietnamese has the palatal nasal nha, with no good equivalent in Cantonese, because there are no ya medials, which can also be said about Vietnamese, where only wa is allowed to act as a medial. This is comparable to the labiovelar sounds in Cantonese, those being qua, qua, and wa. While all Vietnamese dialects allow the glottal stop to be followed by medial wa, Old Vietnamese had voiced fricative va as an initial instead of plain wa, and in some dialects, the sound later merged with Southern ya. Cantonese also has a ya initial, but neither it or Northern Vietnamese have Southern retroflex consonants da, sha, and ra, and neither Cantonese or Southern Vietnamese have an equivalent to Northern za. Cantonese has the affricates ta and ca, which aren't in Vietnamese, but after front vowels i, and u, sibilants palatalize to cha, cha, and xia, similar to cha in Northern Vietnamese, and somewhat similar to kya and sha in Southern Vietnamese, but that's a stretch. It should also be mentioned that in informal Hong Kong Cantonese, initial na shifts to la, initial nga merged with the glottal stop, and qua, qua reduced to ka and ka before back vowels. Both languages are tonal, with Cantonese and Northern Vietnamese having 6 tones each, though the tones are quite different between the two languages, and Southern Vietnamese has only 5 tones. Vietnamese has 2 creaky voice tones, which are nga and nang, neither of which have equivalents in Cantonese. Like most tonal languages, they limit the amount of tones that can come before coda stops, pa ta ka, with only 2 tones allowed before them in Vietnamese and 3 in Cantonese. The area in which Cantonese and Vietnamese are most different is probably in their writing systems. Vietnamese uses the Latin alphabet with a bunch of funny diacritics, while Cantonese uses Chinese characters, aka Hanzi or Hanzi or Kanji or Hanja or Chữ Han. Chinese characters used to be the writing system of Vietnamese for many centuries in a system called Chữ Nom, which included many unique characters created to represent native Vietnamese vocabulary, but long story short, colonialism happened, and now Vietnamese uses Chữ Quoc Ngữ, the name of the Vietnamese alphabet. There are a handful of letter diacritics unique to Vietnamese, those being O and U with horns, and letters with hooks above them to represent the tone Zao Hoi. And Vietnamese combines diacritics for vowel letters with tone diacritics all the time. While Cantonese still uses the traditional forms of characters in Hong Kong and Macau and simplified Chinese on the mainland, the characters remain regardless. Though Cantonese is mostly a colloquial language, and Standard Chinese, i.e. Mandarin, is usually written down instead, although there is an informal written form of Cantonese which reflects the spoken language. There are a handful of different romanization systems for Cantonese, of which I've been using Yut Ping throughout this video. One system I want to highlight is Yut Yut, which uses Vietnamese diacritics to romanize the language, and ends up working great because Vietnamese has enough vowel letters and tone diacritics to represent all the vowels and tones of Cantonese. Here's a sample text of Cantonese romanized with Yut Yut so you can see it in its full glory. Now on to grammatical similarities, of which there are a lot. Both Vietnamese and Cantonese are isolating analytic languages, and most of their morphemes are only one syllable long, so most syllables in either language have meaning. Both languages have SVO, subject-verb-object-word order, and have prepositions coming before nouns. They also have noun classifiers, also called counters, which come between nouns and number words.
Một cái bàn.
一張台
Both meaning one table. In Vietnamese, they're often used before nouns and even without number words present in order to clarify the noun.
Con mèo đáng yêu.
One major difference is that in Cantonese, adjectives come before the nouns they modify, while in Vietnamese, they go after the noun.
Tôi đang ăn một quả táo màu đỏ.
我食緊一個紅蘋果
Both meaning I am eating a red apple. Both Vietnamese and Cantonese have verbal particles, some of which mark the continuous imperfect aspects, with dang and da in Vietnamese and con/ju and zo in Cantonese. And Cantonese has a handful more for other aspects, while Vietnamese has other particles marking tense. Both Cantonese and Vietnamese have sentence final particles, which convey the mood of the speaker and can change the tone and feel of a sentence. Vietnamese forms yes or no questions by placing có, which means have, followed by không, meaning no, at the end of a sentence. Cantonese uses either sentence final particles or the verb-not-verb pattern. In both languages, question words simply go in the part of the sentence that they would go if the sentence was a statement.
Bạn ở đâu?
你喺邊度
Both mean, where are you? And their corresponding statements would be,
Bạn ở thư viện.
你喺圖書館
I am at the library. Comparisons also work similarly. A particle meaning more than is simply placed after the adjective. In Cantonese, this is quo, and in Vietnamese, it's hun. In Cantonese, an agent is required to be present in sentences with passive verbs, but in Vietnamese, passives can be used freely. And finally, Cantonese has direct objects come before the indirect object, while in Vietnamese, the indirect object goes first. So in conclusion, Vietnamese and Cantonese are decently similar, especially with regards to grammar and vocabulary, but are still very much distinct and can hardly be confused for one another. And of course, both languages are beautiful in their own ways. Thank you to all my patrons, Sunder and Prague. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video, and for now, goodbye, tạm biệt, and 再见.